and say,
I mean, I think
they say
okay. So this is again, as I said, I do believe that abortion's murder, but I think
what if they say,
that parents should be allowed to kill their babies
in our places? We don't want you to put up yard signs.
It's like a victimless crime because they're the only victims of the crime.
There's a connection. There's a very deep connection between the idea of American citizenship, the full idea, and the liberties that actually make American society such a cool place to live. And if
that aside,
into renters,
Roe v. Wade was a horrible decision.
Here's where you're wrong, though. People really like these shows where
people
buy $20 million homes.
The Warren Court was one of the most
because there's 30 shows about
pro free speech courts
and people get
we've
to
ever
watch
had.
So you don't have to.
I think that it was.
You can watch somebody
very
else
beneficial, largely to America.
You can live in a pod,
but the way that they tried to
But by the way,
imbue
people do that. There are people watching
a right to abortion in the Constitution
for tens of millions of dollars. Who
is an absolute bastardization of the judicial system.
Their rent.
Yeah, it's almost
an absolute
like
bastardization.
The
There's no
of distracting.
There's absolutely no way,
the
dude, that you can argue
have been stagnating for many years.
Yeah,
yeah,
and you address that by perhaps is it
that the Constitution as is
what I think is
allows
a number of the president has
guarantees a right to abortion
by the name of Steve Witkoff.
Guarantees a right to abortion.
Very smart guy. He's one of the most
successful. And there's a different argument to be made as far as
interesting ideas. And it's hysterical because Steve is, I assume, a multi-billionaire. He's certainly
whether or not
but
states should be able to do
how to make
should be able
so
to
that ordinary
make it
Americans are paying
illegal.
The same amount for debt as the big guys, right? Because if you're paying 7% and the big guys are paying 2%,
I guess that is the argument, right? You're saying
there are a lot of different
that
ways
states shouldn't be able to make it illegal by
saying you could just
that
basically statutorily
it's part
not
of
allow
the
BlackRock to access the federal funds directly. You could do all these things to lower the cost of capital for normal Americans.
Trying to focus
There's
on
a
the
lot
game.
of ways to address the problem, but it's a problem. And the fact that we're not talking about that, instead we're talking about, like Donald Trump.
Yeah, I don't think it. No, that's fair. I don't think it is politically smart. That's why I don't understand why they do it, because I don't think it's politically smart.
Of all the criticisms of Donald Trump, the craziest one is, he said,
I'm threatening smothered mate here.
If people riot after the election, law enforcement should prevent that from happening. And they're like, oh, that's a threat to democracy.
Oh man, how funny would that should have been?
That's common American law enforcement, but it's funny, man. People
I have
are
a runaway
more focused
pawn
on
here
that. The
that I
media is
could
more
look
focused
into.
on that than on the fact that we have a set of
I
economic
have
policies
this
that are
night
turning, like our generation. And I assume you're about my age.
Yeah.
Like our generation, especially younger.
Let's go here. This bishop,
paupers,
that is what Caro called a
renters
wooden shield.
in the country that their parents and grandparents built. And I see these polls that say that young people, usually vote for Democrats, but maybe they're more pro-Trump this cycle than they were last cycle. My argument to them is, aren't you sick of politicians talking about fake bullshit instead of the fact that you can't afford a home and that you won't be able to raise a family because you won't be able to afford their healthcare costs and their housing costs? Like, let's talk about real stuff. Say what you will about Donald Trump.
Nutty.
Say what you will about me.
Right.
He talks about real
that seems
things.
very,
that
very
real
dumb.
people.
Is the happy medium them owning a home in the Ukraine? You know what I mean? Because you're making a lot of points that are going to be tough.
Okay, let's see.
Well, look. If Kamala Harris is president, here's the win-win. Again, she's always looking for that.
Right.
If they own a home in Ukraine, they can then be conscripted into her endless war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And so, if you're a young American and you'd like to own a very sweet mansion in Ukraine while also fighting a war for a country that's 6,000 miles away, then Kamala Harris is your candidate. If you'd like to own a nice home in the United States of America and raise a family, I think Donald Trump is more your flavor. But different shapes, different strokes for different folks, man. I don't want to judge anybody's preferences.
No, for sure.
I just want to give the honest
I have a lot of friends that were very into
voting
the
for Kamala Harris does.
They're very excited about it. Many of them live in Beverly Hills, and they got the flags and everything, and they got into it. And it's actually fun to have something to be into.
Well, I saw a couple years ago, a buddy sent me a photo. They had the Black Lives Matter thing in the yard.
Sure.
They had the Trans Lives Matter sign in the yard, and then they had the Ukrainian flag hanging up on their porch. And he sent me this photo, and he said, "I've just seen it. the liberal Holy Trinity.
That's
right?
it. Yeah.
It used to be the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
No.
Now it's
but I think if that's like,
well, we're not allowed to.
It's
ask
crazy
why,
because, dude, without
why
abortion,
what happened or what we did to potentially create conditions where
exactly.
I mean, we're not allowed to ask that.
Did American diplomacy
this election? I mean,
create conflict instead of diffusing?
It's
conflict?
like the number one issue
You,
for a lot of
maybe
Democrats.
Maybe that was the goal. We don't know.
Not that
I
they
don't
would
wanna
ever
sound
vote
like
for
that.
Trump
Well,
anyway. I mean, I guess that's the political calculation.
It's
But anyway, okay. What was I saying? I was saying that I think that probably it makes sense to just
that's how these people
let people get abortions. I don't know why they care so much.
Through Europe, that he's going to knock over Poland, that he's going to knock over.
Not via the mechanism
of all the absurd arguments I've heard. That is
doesn't seem likely.
He can't
definitely not via the mechanism of a.
That was his goal. He can't take half of Ukraine, but somehow he's going to march all the way to Berlin. And by the way, like, if he marches all the way to
Of a Supreme Court ruling, it's got to be Congress, bro. It's got to be Congress. If they want to